Hello, everyone, and welcome to the October episode of the Nightmares to Miracles podcast. My name is Brittany New, and I'm here with Dr. Dave Asomaning, and today we are going to be doing another lesson from A Course in Miracles where we relate one of the lessons to the theme that we have discussing, and this year's theme is on light. So we just did a little powwow before hitting record to say how we're going to make sure to integrate light in today's lesson, because sometimes the lessons have the word from our year's theme inside of it, and sometimes they don't. But as Dave explained to me, this one is very straightforward in terms of how it does relate to light, and I think it's a great goal to try to have more light and happiness in our lives. So I'm excited for Dave to dive into this lesson for us. But first, we have a few preliminaries that we like to start with and open with. So Dave, why don't you start by introducing yourself and telling us more about your executive coaching business?
Fantastic. Brittany, it's good to see you again for our October podcast recording call. And this is the last call for 2025. Next month, November 2025, we start our new topic for the following year, 2026. So we always start 2 months before the actual year. So November and December, we'll be starting with our new theme, which will be a theme we've done before, but we're recycling the themes just so we can keep going deeper and deeper with these main themes. So that theme, the theme coming up is the theme of peace. That's what we're going to be looking at for the next year, starting in November next month. So good to be with you, Brittany. Good to be with our audience. And I do executive coaching, which is working with leaders who are running things. That's how I think of it, who are running companies and who are very interested in personal development so that they can improve the work that they do for their organizations. And I say jokingly that I'm a recovering psychotherapist. So I was trained in pastoral psychoanalytic psychotherapy, which is a bit of a mouthful, but put all those different ingredients together. And I did that work in New York City. My office was at 35th and Lex, 7 blocks from Grand Central Station. So I did that for quite a bit before I began to shift into executive coaching. And there's a strong personal dimension to the executive coaching I do. So I support leaders with different nightmares. That's the name of the book. That's the name of my coaching program. And that theme flavors a lot of what we do on this call too. So crises can be in health and wellness and stress. The crises can be in actually wealth accumulation. Even though I've transitioned to working with people who are ultra wealthy, ultra high net worth, I guess is the term, north of 20 million, 30 million, 40 million, and so on, in investable wealth, there can be a lot of anxiety and stress about the wealth creation process through the business or on a personal side. We also look at relationships a lot. And then spiritual meaning. So it's health, wealth, love, and enlightenment. These are the 4 categories. And just a quick sidebar, I won't go too far on this, but I've decided that every month I'll introduce something that's been pivotal or transformative for me around leadership and wealth creation. So I grew up in Ghana and in the 60s, basically, through the 70s. And at that time, my dad was heavily involved in the cocoa industry. The chocolate is made from cocoa. And that was Ghana's main source of income. And at the time, roughly, I think Ghana's gross domestic product, the total sort of wealth that the country handled on an annual basis, was probably about $5 billion. And cocoa accounted for about 3.5 billion of the total wealth of the country. So I grew up thinking about this in a child's way, but watching my dad and so on and so forth. So Ghana's GDP now in 2025, I think, is around $100 billion. And then I've had the privilege of working with clients in their leadership from the American side, who in some cases have been in control of $300 billion. with the America's GDP being something like maybe 4.5 trillion. So there's been a growth curve. The numbers are just astronomical when you consider the U.S. economy compared to the economy I grew up in. But everything has been growing exponentially all around. So just some numbers, and I might be a little off with some of the numbers. I'm not really a numbers person, but a little disclaimer there. So anyway, we are moving on in our call today to the next main sort of topic, Brittany, which is about our miraculous journey together. Right, we're going to look at this before we get to the actual lesson. Um, so, we met many years or many moons ago, as some might say, and it's been a great journey. I mean, wow. I love talking about this part. It's not a work. It's not tedious. It's just wonderful to keep celebrating the miracle journey that we've been on. So the way I tell the story, almost every one of these episodes, is that I needed some help with some very ordinary, unimpressive worksheets that I would give to clients as part of the onboarding process with the executive coaching. And consistently, you would return uh, just amazing documents. I mean, they were polished, they looked great. I was just proud to okay, where can I send these next? And so that's how we started. And then we went to videos. I made some very rough recordings of an online course, the modules of the course. I was just speaking into a mic, but I had the modules recorded. And you took those and you did intros and outros. I didn't even know what those were at the time, and just made those things look a whole lot more solid and presentable. And so that became the online course. Um, and you even had some more advanced ideas of what we could do, which are still kind of on the back burner, about actually filming in person at a very high level using your background in film. And that idea is just amazing. Uh, and hopefully we will get to that at some point. But what you did for me was more than good enough, given what I would have been doing on my own. All of that material from the course then became the book, Nightmares to Miracles, which was released in 2021. And then after the book was released, the next logical thing was to do a podcast around it to keep educating about my coaching method and what was in the book. And so that's where we are now. I've checked in with you very kind of cautiously, and I was like, any chance you might be able to help me with this other stuff? You helped me with so many things. And you're like, yeah. Upon thinking about it, I think that would work. So we've been doing this podcast for 5 years now. And again, I'm not trying to do content like crazy every week, 2 things, 3 things. We do this once a month. More than adequate, I think, to provide a database of information to people who are interested in keeping up with miracle mindset, which is the main focus of the whole coaching program and the way I approach executive coaching. So just a few more things, Brittany. Then I'm going to hand the mic over to you for any thoughts and to educate us some more about what you do and where people can find you. So one of the amazing things that you do is you'll take the raw footage that we're recording right now on this Zoom call. You'll add all kinds of amazing, sparkly dust in a good way to this. And I encourage folks to read the blog, especially. You can read it quickly, and you do something miraculous to the blog every time. And I come to it with fresh eyes, and I'm like, wow, look at what she did again. It's like, all right, this is like, it just informs me about what we just did together on a whole nother level. It's really quite an interesting experience. So I encourage folks in our audience to take a look at the blog, but you will also create just an audio podcast, and then you will create the video podcast too. So people want different things or like different things. So we have 3 different approaches to the material that we're sharing here. And it's so flattering to hear people say, oh, I binge watched a whole year's worth of your programs while I was on a road trip. And Okay, I like that. So it's a modest operation, but again, with big aspirations to reach more and more people. So, and then your materials that you create, Brittany, are very easy to distribute by another person who helps me with the social media distribution of stuff. So, got a little cottage industry here of getting the word out. So, over to you, Brittany. You've been very patient listening to me go on here. Anything you want to say about your work and where people can find you and things like that?
Yeah, Dave, thank you so much for the shout out and the testimonial. That's really kind of you. It's always a pleasure working with you on this show. And if you ever need more help with the worksheets or the courses, you know where to find me. But if anyone else is looking for services related to digital products or even branding, I have a website, which is brittanynew.com. That's my name. And then I also have a YouTube channel where you can find some do it yourself tutorials or just general informational tips about how to use AI to help automate some things in your business as well. And that channel is also my name, Brittany New. So I've got about almost 17,000 subscribers now and growing, and that's really exciting. But yeah, these past 5 years doing the show together have really flown by, and it's just such a seamless process that we have, a nice symbiosis that you have established, Dave, with the flow of how you organize all of these shows and how you come up with the lessons each month, and always trying to test new styles in terms of how we structure the show. So you just make it really dynamic and interesting. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Yeah, thank you for everything you just shared. And I hope people will continue to look for you and benefit from your work in the miraculous way I've benefited from it too. And the other thing I wanted to add here, real quickly, is that it's easier and easier to think of the podcast and the information sharing that we do in bigger and bigger ways. But by which I mean, because the technical stuff of how to get the show done, as you were pointing out, what lessons to do, how we talk about the lessons, how we share, what ends up being the finished product around the podcast, because that's now kind of well developed over the years we've done this. It's easier to now think of our audience and sort of do con- connecting exercises with our audience, larger audience, more people who get what we're doing and like it and who are personally helped by it, whether or not they're executives or in the market for executive coaching. It goes way beyond that, but it's also a resource for people who want to stay connected to our ongoing dedication to miracle mindset, right? And I say a miracle, and you know this well, Brittany, but a miracle is a solution to a problem that seems impossible to solve. And you can add that it's God sourced, but not everybody is comfortable with the God language. So you put all kinds of things into that placeholder. So thank you for being on this journey and making life so much easier and more miraculous. So we're going now to the lesson. All right, this is lesson 121, and the lesson says, as its headline, "Forgiveness is the key to happiness." Forgiveness is the key to happiness. And that just seems like such a huge claim for A Course in Miracles to be making, right? This is lesson 121, not quite halfway, but through the course. There are 365 lessons. And then the beginning half of the lesson is about all these sort of almost like rhetorical claims. I just sample a few of them real quickly. The unforgiving mind is full of fear. The unforgiving mind is torn with doubt and confused about itself. The unforgiving mind sees no mistakes, but only sins. The contrast here between mistakes as something being with mistakes as something that can be corrected and fixed. Sins cannot be fixed. They hang around the neck of whoever's guilty of them, and that's what the unforgiving mind sees. The forgiving mind sees mistakes which can be fixed, or the consequences of which can be fixed. The unforgiving mind is in despair without the prospect of a future. So the unforgiving mind is super, super unstable and rooted in bad stuff. Not a good place to be. So, with that as a set of opening premises, we can see why it's saying that forgiveness is the key to happiness. And as you pointed out, Brittany, we were powwowing about this uh, beforehand, as we often do. And I think the idea of forgiveness here in A Course in Miracles in general is about accepting that everything we see uh, with the physical senses, everything we experience with the physical senses, is like a virtual reality akin to what we see in the Matrix. And that you see this more in social media too now, where people will say, oh, this public person who was speaking had a glitch in the Matrix, like if they falter or don't say or whatever. And people refer to, oh, there was a glitch in the Matrix, there was a glitch in the Matrix. So what this lesson I think is getting at, and what the whole course is getting at, is that everything we live in through the field of perception is one big unhappy virtual reality, even the parts that are happy. And that the only way to be fulfilled and happy is to accept that we're living in a matrix, and we have to get to a place where we can give up the matrix, right? So a part of this then for the rest of the lesson is that we frequently form assumptions about people in the matrix. This is a good one, this is a bad one, I like this one, I dislike that one. So the exercises I'm going to talk about briefly next are about um, picking three different people. One of them is somebody we really dislike. The second one is somebody we really like, and the third person is ourselves. And the exercise is recommended to be done 10 minutes in the morning, 10 minutes at night. And we are going to basically, with the first person, look at uh, uh, something about them that seems full of light, or has a little bit of light in it, even though we dislike the person. So, for instance, just to make this easy for myself, I'm picking Hitler. Okay, now I don't mean to make light of Hitler and the atrocities or anything like that, but it's just a good placeholder for somebody I can genuinely say I hate. You know, um, I detest, I dislike. I watch a lot of these World War II movies and these Nazi movies. Schindler's List being sort of at the top. I remember when it first came out, I rushed out and I probably watched it 10 times in a row. And people are like, Dave, come on, why are you doing that? I can barely get through it the first time. It's so brutal. I don't know. There was something that just I felt so compelled to watch. I couldn't believe what I was seeing, actually. But in any case, I digress. So the pick Hitler, and then people say, well, what's the light you could possibly see in him following this exercise that you could grow to cover the whole person? And as I mentioned to you, Brittany, when we were prepping, the light for me is about how efficient and passionate he as a leader seemed to be. And then I'm quick to add about his killing machine. Okay, so I'm separating out. He created a killing machine, but he seemed to be very efficient and passionate. So maybe that's a starting place for something good about him that was misapplied. It was applied to the wrong thing. I'm not defending it. I'm just doing this exercise, trying to do this exercise. So, and I also mentioned to you that I have a long list of other people I don't like. I mean, I'm almost embarrassed to say, but it's a big, long bucket of people. I mean, it just who would fit I could do the same thing with, but I wanted to pick sort of the most appalling catch-all, right? So I see a little bit of light about efficiency and passion. Then I grow it to cover, according to this exercise, grow it to cover the whole being, Hitler. And I'm doing the mechanics of it, but I'm not feeling it. I'll tell you, I'm just, but I'm going through this. So then the second part of the exercise is to take this light and to apply it to somebody I genuinely like. So I picked Jesus, as I mentioned to you in the prep, because Jesus, I adore Jesus. I honor him. He's a teacher, he's a coach, he's a mentor, he's a healer. There's almost nothing about Jesus that I object to. So, okay, he's a good friend. I don't mean to speak casually or too casually or lightly about him either, but I bring this light from Hitler over to Jesus, and I see Jesus in this same light that I started off with in Hitler. Then, after doing this with Jesus, I bring the light from Jesus to me. Right. So I think that as we were talking about, and you could help me with this. I'm going to give you the mic in just a moment, but you can help me with this and make it more understandable or more hearable or something. But this is what I call the triangle of light in this exercise. And I think what the exercise is trying to get us to do is see that beyond our own impressions and images and prejudices within the virtual reality we're in, the matrix, there's a unifying light, divine light, that is first and foremost the foundation of everything, uh, in spite of the ways in which we go left and right and up and down in a dualistic frame of mind, which is so unstable. And that there's a stable divine place of regard for everybody. And it's trying to get us to connect with that, with the people we hate, the people we think we love, and even ourselves. So this is forgiveness, because it's about giving up our own biases, which is a different form of forgiveness that the Course is teaching. It's like waking up from the nightmare, the bad dream, the movie we've made, the matrix that we live in. Not so much, I deem you to be good and I deem you to be bad based on my own sort of biases. All right, I think I've got it all out. Over to you, Brittany. Thanks for being so patient. Want to hear your thoughts, if you have them.
Yeah, sure. I think you explained it well. This was similar to how you kind of broke it down in a more brief way before the call started. So I think that was a perfect explanation of how we're trying to, like you said, get out of our biases and just see everyone in this light, as well as ourselves. And what's great about this exercise is that, as you said, you can start by just doing the mechanics of it, and then with repetition, you can slowly start to feel this kind of divine light. And I have, during different points in my life, walked in a more light state and then walked in a more matrix state. In the matrix state, everybody's wrong. The waiter, the drivers, your mom, everybody's wrong. And in the light state, nobody can do any wrong because we're all obviously doing our best, and that's all we can do. So, if you're in the phase where you're walking in the matrix and everyone's wrong, just start with the mechanics of it, and try to pick someone who maybe didn't necessarily wrong you as well, because yeah, I guess we can trickle down, Hitler's evil to us directly as people, but not all of us maybe can. So you can start with someone who's just generally seen as a bad guy, a bad woman, and just start by identifying some of those traits. This could also be tricky for people who um, they don't feel like there's anyone they have to forgive. Some people feel like that. So then you can just start with someone who's not connected to you and just apply this forgiveness to them too. And then you might start to notice and pick up on places where you haven't been in that light with everyone in your life and in your past and everything. So those are some different thoughts and suggestions that I have.
Excellent. Love it.
Thanks.
Love it. Love it. You triggered for me the idea, too, that part of why the Course is getting us to do this is not to excuse anybody within the matrix for the horrible things they've done. And people can be brought to justice. The Nuremberg trials, ruthless for bringing all kinds of Nazis to swift and thorough, often deadly judgment. So again, I'm not glorying in that, but I'm just saying that this is not an excuse or making light of the people who were just brutalized by this. It's just an exercise, which I think, again, you just laid it out so beautifully. I love everything you said about people to pick and people to use, and you helped me get in touch with the idea that somewhere inside of each of us, at a level that we're not aware of, is the capacity for the things that we detest in others. And this is a way that the Course is trying to get us to recognize that what we give to the worst of what we see out there is something we're giving to ourselves. This is a big concept in the Course. We only ever give things to ourselves. So if we give hatred and unrelenting judgment, even to the worst of the worst out there, we're doing the same thing to ourselves. It's a bit circular, but and again, we're not pounding this or trying to sell it. It's just something that it makes sense to grapple with as part of miracle mindset. So thank you, Brittany, for just always bringing such a clear, like direct way of breaking this down. I love it. I love it, and you helped to release me to other thoughts I had too. So let's go to the other parts of our call. So one is the headlines, recent headlines, where we try to bring these principles into play. And then the final one is your very sort of gifted call to action, an application of some kind. So headlines, I think of P. Diddy's recent sentencing. I don't think we've talked since then. He got 4.5 years. A lot of people think that's not enough. That he's a real monster and should have gone away for a really long time for all the essay stuff he was doing. The other big topic recently in the headlines has been the Nobel Prize and who was going to get it and who wasn't going to get it, and then who did get it. And, you know, it's a mixed bag of results in many ways for people. It's like, at first blush, it seems like a great choice, and then it just then seems to be fraught with all kinds of potential issues. Um, and I don't know if you have thoughts on headlines you'd like to mention. Turn the there's more things I have on my list. I just needed to get my list, but go over to you if there's anything you'd like to mention.
Oh, okay, I wasn't prepared for this because I see a lot of different headlines, but I don't always like check on what's true or what's not true sometimes. But I believe the hostages are getting released from Israel, from Gaza.
Good point.
So that's a big one. If it's true, if it's happening, it's been in the talks for so long now. So
I think that that's on the way, like you
mhm,
say, if it can be
mhm.
verified and believed.
Yeah.
There are two others that that have come up for me that I'll share quickly, and then
Mhm.
uh, we'll go from there. So there's the government shutdown here in
Yes.
the U.S. It's like, okay, and people are getting furloughed and cut off, and they're not getting
Mhm.
their paychecks, and um, and then there was I think a judge last week. Her house blew up and was on fire, and people think that that was arson based on her political positions. And I mean, there's on and on and on. There's so many different things, but again, those are the ones that come to mind. And again, we don't have to name all of them, but the 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 point of the headlines um, is to say that sometimes, not always, I don't want to exaggerate my claims here, but sometimes I do work with clients uh, who are in the headlines. I wouldn't say who they are or what it is, but so I feel like this guilty pleasure of keeping up with the headlines of the news is something that I owe my clients, is to be well informed about what's going on, because in some cases they have front row seats to what's happening. Uh, so that's um, one aspect, and then the second aspect, which I think is something that everybody can do, is that the the headlines and the things going on in the world in the matrix can be frightening. They can be angering. They can be really upsetting. And we're doing the forgiveness process whenever we mention these or we think of so many other headlines. We're just doing what this exercise mentioned, which is we're taking a position in which we see light and truth from God's power underlying everything. And that's part of miracle mindset. So, anything else you would like to say as we move on to your call to action for us?
No, I think those were good headlines. Yeah, actually, I wanted to mention earlier, you just said really briefly that you're not a numbers guy, but I wanted to challenge that by saying there's two ways of kind of observing the world. There's through the numbers, and then there's through the kind of fundamentals. So it sounds like you're more of a fundamental analysis type person with knowing what's going on in terms of the story and the people and the motives behind it, but not so much the numbers and the data. So I think that's a really good skill that you have as a coach in what you're doing. Mm-hmm.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for that. Yeah, I appreciate hearing that. Yeah, the numbers, that just to track a sense of progress from when I was a kid in the 60s, Ghana's GDP, 5 billion, cocoa, 3.5 billion. And then in terms of synchromind and leadership development, working personally with people who run budgets of 300 billion, I'm like, I mean, it's an interesting growth curve, and, just, yeah, I mean, not to get, again, we're making good time, which is part of our goal, so I won't go on and on. But, I mean, I was with the first clients in that kind of arena, it was very nerve wracking. It's like, oh, you know, just a nervous energy about being the coach, and they're seeking me out to help them with miracle mindset and different crises and stuff. And I wouldn't say I've become blasé about it, but I've become much more comfortable with this as part of the journey. And just knowing a few of the numbers, I think I'm throwing some of those out there. Hopefully, I'm not lying or making mistakes or exaggerating anything I'm saying, but putting it out there can give our audience members something to hang onto. That, oh, Dave isn't just always talking about like empty, fluffy things from A Course in Miracles, but there's actual concrete metrics, that can be used to assess the journey. Uh, so thank you very much for that. Yeah, fundamentals, definitely.
Yeah, that's interesting about the Ghana cocoa industry. I didn't know any of that. So very cool that your family was involved in that as well.
Thank you. That's where the leadership started, watching my dad in that industry, and pluses and minuses, working with, you know, just that'll be, for another time. Yeah, I'm not going to eat up our lead here with just
Sure.
digressions. Yeah.
So thanks for leading that lesson today, and it has this kind of built-in application that we can apply here. So the call to action is gonna build off of that, and just advise all of you, including myself, to just try that triangle of light. It can be something, like I said, that has directly impacted you recently. It can just be general mechanics of it, and just picking arbitrarily someone you just have disdain for, someone you like, or find no issue with finding the light in them, so that you can practice kind of spreading and neutralizing that light, and then applying it to yourself, and see how the feeling feels with kind of just walking in that non-binary divine light of unconditional love and applying that. And what you said earlier, Dave, is so true, where you were saying that what we give is what we are giving to ourselves. And so when I had that example of when I'm blaming everyone, including the barista, for my problems, those are probably also days when I'm feeling my own guilt and feeling my own shame. And having forgiveness toward yourself is a huge one, to be able to forgive others. And the other one, where you're kind of giving yourself grace and you're able to give that grace to others, is really important in order to have happiness, which is, to some people, one of the goals of life is that happiness. We didn't really define happiness for the sake of this lesson today, but I think everyone kind of knows what happiness is, and why, practicing this can help us not just walk in a more pure and loving and state the way that God intended it, but just bring us that joy and that happiness throughout our day. So yeah, that's all I've got.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. Again, we could talk about what you just said for days. It's all good, and I'm just co-signing and agreeing with you. Thank you for everything you underscored and what you shared. Perfect, perfect. I love it. I love it. I love it. Just wonderful. And I'm glad we have a structure that will allow us to come back and continue with additional thoughts and along these lines, the more we rehearse these things with each other on our own, as you support us with the calls to action, the more our audience members kind of get a sense of what we're doing and participate, the more we are transforming the world from the matrix and the rigidities and problems of the matrix into joy and happiness. Some people make a distinction between those two. I don't think the course really does. You just hit the nail on the head. It's just a good feeling of security that you're in the right path. And again, we'll come back to that. Maybe even do a whole thing on it. So thank you. Perfect. All right. So thank you to our audience for being with us. Great to have you. If you have comments, please let us know. Brittany, you put so many amazing things into the show notes, where to find you, very important, where to find the book that's underlying this. Just excellent work all around there. And something else I was going to say, I can't remember, but over to you to take us out.
All right, so next year we're going to be diving into the theme of peace. And again, that starts just next month in November. So we are excited to announce that. And Dave has this awesome list of themes that he is going through and recycling kind of year after year. There's so many in there, and it's for a whole year. So it's not going to feel like a repetition per se. And they are evergreen themes. But next year, in the kind of repetition sequence, he's got peace on there. So that's exciting. And yeah, let's cultivate a year of peace for 2026. So I will see you next month, Dave, when we get into that, and I look forward to it.
Thank you so much, Brittany. Really good to see you. Thank you for an excellent show, as always. And thank you to our audience for joining in this circle of peace and forgiveness with us. Thank you. See you next month, everybody.
All right, see you next month. Bye.
Bye.